to get the event underway on time. Thank you. Judges, can I please ask you to pop your J-pads on, please? Thank you. Judge 2 and Judge 5. Thank you. Judge 5, please. And with the referee's permission, may we begin on 3 metre, please? Thank you, Beth. And our first divers, Luke Raggett and Sienna Ray Mills, representing London. Forward 1.5 somersaults piked. Execution 7, 6.5, 7, 7. Synchronization 7, 7, 6. Molly Felsted and Lennon Olsen, representing the Northwest. Reverse dive with tuck. Execution 3, 3.5, 3.5, 4. Synchronization 4, 3, 4. Finley Stratford and Naya Sogut, representing the South E. Forward 1.5 somersaults, pike. Execution. Synchronization 6, Goodwin and Kitty Smith, representing London. Back 1.5 somersaults, half twist, free position. Execution, 5.5, 6, 6. Synchronization, 6.5, 6.5, 7. Will Heath and Scarlett Colborne representing the Southwest. Back dive, piked. Execution, 6.5, 7, 6.5, 6. Synchronization, 7, 6.5. Daisy Halls and Conor Lano represent East. Inward, 1.5 somersaults piked. Execution, 7, 7, 7, 6.5. Synchronization, 7, 8, 6.5. Lexi Davis and Noah Underwood representing the Southwest. Back dive, piked. Execution, 6, 6.5, 6, 7. Synchronization, 7.5, 5.5, 6. Bing McFarlane and Alice Bilton representing the East. Forward, 1.5 somersaults piked. Execution, 6, 6, 6, 6. Synchronization, 7, 7, 8. Lewis Nielsen and Sophie May Hancock representing the Northeast. Forward, 1.5 somersaults piked. Execution, 5.5, 6, 6, 6. Synchronization, 6.5, 5, 5.5. Chloe Strutt and Sebastian Wilcox representing the Northeast. Forward, 1.5 somersaults piked. Execution, 6, 5.5, 6.5, 6.5. Synchronization, 5, 4.5, 4.5. On to round 2, Luke and Sienna. Back dive, piked. Execution, 7.5, 7.5, 7, 7. Synchronization, 6, 5, 5. Molly and Lennon. Inward dive, piked.
Dutch kids are balloons in the parking lot. The gold notches illuminate the business park. I eat myself to death, feed the cobra machine. I watch some movies inside every line and scene. God bless America and all of its allies. I'm not the first to live all over my eyes. I should blissful.
Execution 5, 5.5, 3, 3.5. Synchronization 5, 4.5, 4. Finlay and Naya, reverse dive, piked. Execution 6, 6, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization 5, 5, 4.5. Max and Kitty, back dive, piked.
All across the world, it counts to eat mankind, hidden in our blind side. Hey, see, I'm a nihilist, 'cause I can't see any decent rhyme or reason for the life of you and me. Would I leave you?
Execution 6.5, 6.5, 6, 6.5. Synchronization 7, 6.5, 6. Will and Scarlet, forward 1.5 somersaults, piked. Execution 5.5, 5.5, 6.5, 6.5. Synchronization 7.5, 7.5, 7. Daisy and Connor, reverse dive, piked. Execution 6.5, 7, 7.5, 6.5. Synchronization 6.5, 7, 7. Lexi and Noah, reverse dive, piked. Execution 6, 7, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization 5, 4.5, 5.5. Finn and Alice, back dive, piked. Execution 5.5, 6.5, 6, 6. Synchronization 6, 6, 6.5. Lewis and Sophie, back dive, piked. Execution 6, 5.5, 7, 7. Synchronization 6, 5.5, 7. Chloe and Sebastian, forward 1.5 somersaults, 1 twist, free position. Execution 5, 4.5, 6.5, 7. Synchronization 4.5, 3.5, 3. On to round 3. Luke and Sienna, inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6. Synchronization 5, 5.5, 5.5. Holly and Lennon inward 1.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 4.5, 5, 5, 5.5. Synchronization 5, 5.5, 4. Finlay and Naya forward 1.5 somersaults, 1 twist, free position. Execution 6, 6.5, 6, 5.5. Synchronization 6.5, 6.5, 6. Max and Kitty inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 4, 4, 5.5, 7. Synchronization 4.5, 3, 4. Will and Scarlett inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 5.5, 6, 4, 4.5. Synchronization 6, 5, 5.5. Daisy and Connor inward 1. Correction. Daisy and Connor inward 2.5 somersaults piked. Execution 4.5, 5, 4.5, 5.5. Synchronization 5, 5, 4.5. Lexi and Noah inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 5, 6, 4.5, 3. Synchronization 3.5, 4, 5.5. Finn and Alice inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 6, 7, 4.5, 4.5. Synchronization 6, 5.5, 6. Lewis and Sophie. Inward 1.5 somersaults, piked. Execution 6, 6, 7.5, 5.5. Synchronization 7, 7, 7. Chloe and Sebastian. Forward 2.5 somersaults, piked. Execution 5, 5, 6, 6.5. Synchronization 6, 5.5, 5. And on to our final round of dives, round 5. Luke Raggett and Sienna Ray Mills representing London. Back 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 5, 4.5, 3.5, 5. Synchronization 4.5, 4.5, 6. Molly Felsted and Lennon Elson representing the Northwest. Forward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 1, 1.5, 1.5, 2. Synchronization 1, 4, 5. Finlay Stratford and Naya Sogut representing the Southeast. Forward 2.5 somersaults, piked. Execution 5.5, 6, 5.5, 5.5. Synchronization 5.5, 6, 6. Max Goodwin and Kitty Smith representing London. Back 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Execution 4, 5.5, 3.5, 5.5. Synchronization 5, 3.5, 4.5. Will Heath and Scarlett Colborne representing the Southwest. Back 1.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists, free position.
I wanna wake up every morning feeling better, cause I know you're sleeping by my side.
Execution 6, 6, 6, 6.5. Synchronization 6, 6.5, 6.5. Daisy Halls and Conolano, representing the East. Forward 2.5 somersaults, piked. Execution 7, 6.5, 6, 7. Synchronization 7, 7, 6.5. Lexi Davis and Noah Underwood, representing the Southwest. Back 1.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists, free position. Execution 6, 6, 6, 5.5. Synchronization 6.5, 6, 5. Finn McFarlane and Alice Bilton, representing the East. Back 1.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists, free position. Execution 6.5, 6.5, 5.5, 6. Synchronization 7, 6.5, 6. Lewis Nielsen and Sophie May Hancocks, representing the Northeast. Forward 2.5 somersaults, piked. Execution 6.5, 5.5, 6.5, 6. Synchronization 5.5, 4.5, 4.5. And our final divers of this event, Chloe Strutt and Sebastian Wilcox, representing the Northeast. Inward 1.5 somersaults, piked. Execution 6, 5, 6, 5.5. Synchronization 5.5, 5.5, 4.5. And that concludes the intermediate senior mixed synchro event. We'll have those results for you shortly. Thank you, divers. Thank you, recorders. And thank you, judges.